Show 1 minute. Okay, good evening. I'll call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of Town Council. Today is January 11th, 2021. We have all council members present, excluding Mayor George, who is out of town. And so indulge me, council, while he is absent. So we have a quorum. Quorum is present. And so I'd like to make, can I get a motion to adjourn into executive session?
Make a motion to adjourn to executive session.
All right, motion made by Councilmember Freeman, seconded by Councilmember Eldridge to adjourn into executive session at 6:01 p.m. pursuant to Chapter 551, Section D of the Texas Government Code. Oh, I have motion. Can I have a? Can we vote? Let's vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. All right, I'll adjourn to the executive session.
Councilmember Egan, can you mute yourself and then turn your video off, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, who we missing? Is Mark back online? Mr. Egan? All right, I'm going to go ahead and start us. All right, Mark, okay. Time is 7:03. We convene the town council and back into open session. And as a result of the executive session, I confirm there's no action necessary at this time. So we'll move on to the regular council agenda, and we'll start with invocation, which will be led by Councilmember Allen.
Let's pray. Father God, we thank you for the opportunity to meet tonight, together as a group to make decisions about our town, to represent our town, to represent you. Father, we pray that you'll be with this process tonight. Father, we pray that you'll be with our town, that you'll be with our country, that you bring peace and unity and restore this country under your name and under your mercy and in your love and your grace. Father, we thank you for all your many blessings and ask that you'll just be with us. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
All right, join the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. May be seated. Okay. Going to move into the recognition portion of the agenda, and we have Matthew. Is Matthew online? Trying to get him online for Georgianne Moss.
Matthew, if you can unmute.
Matthew, you're muted.
Matthew, you're muted.
I apologize. I'm sorry. I thought I had it unmuted. I wanted to take a moment just to acknowledge the incredible work that Georgianne Moss has done for the library and for the community as a whole. When we found ourselves wanting to submit a proposal to the 100 Women of Sunnyvale through the Friends of the Sunnyvale Public Library to try to get a grant to work on some side projects that wouldn't be covered under our normal budget, we struggled quite a bit to figure out who would be willing to do it. And of her own volition, time, and will, Georgianne Moss stepped up and did a staggering, incredible job expressing our library's philosophy and what she means to the community and what the library means to the community. And from that, we've received a grant that totals $13,850 that will go toward so many important projects that we've been working on, including our longstanding local history project, which is finally starting to get a little traction. So with that in mind, I wanted to take the opportunity to congratulate and thank Georgianne Moss for all that she's done and to present with her with an official certificate, thanking her for all the work she's done for us.
Thank you.
There you go. Let's get a picture. I know the Mosses have given so much to this community. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say, the library board was my first civic responsibility here at Sunnyvale, and I love it. It's in my heart. So thank you.
Okay, well, the next item on the agenda, which is announcements. So staff or council, if you wish to make any announcements or report anything, now is the time. Any announcements from staff or council? Okay, hearing none.
Member Ryan,
I'm sorry, Mark.
Pro-Tem Mayor Ryan, I just want to express again my thanks to Steve Dillo for rebuilding the free library box that has been used for a number of years. It was in really bad shape. Steve Dillo took it upon himself through the efforts of Steve Blow, who's on the library board, to rebuild that box and put it back into decent shape again, get all the termites out of it, dilapidated wood and what have you, and put something back out there again for people to be able to do free exchanges of books. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody else? Okay. We will move on to the public forum. So if there's anybody in the audience or online that would like to speak to the council about any item that's not personnel or items on the agenda, already on the agenda, please do so. And if you have anybody online, raise your hand, please.
There are no hands raised.
Thank you very much. And having seen no one come forward, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Council, we have 5 items on the consent agenda. Would anyone like to have anything removed from the consent agenda? If not, if I can have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second. Motion made by Mr. Freeman, seconded by Mr. Eldridge. All in favor? Motion passes unanimous. Okay, thank you. I missed something. Okay. Mark, we need to see Mark.
Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Forget about you over there. All right. Now we'll move to the public hearing portion of the agenda. Get my cheat sheet out here. We have, let's see here. We have one item on the public hearing agenda. Item number 10, hold a public hearing, discuss and act on the first reading of ordinance 2110 and amending ordinance 20-23. Susan? Phyllis. Hi, Phyllis.
Hi, good evening, Mayor.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. Good evening, Mayor Pro-Tem and Council. Section 6.08, lapse of appropriations of the town charter, addresses those situations that a funding source is identified for a particular projects, but were not completed during the fiscal year. Every appropriation except an appropriation for a capital expenditure shall lapse at the close of the fiscal year to the extent that it has not been expended or encumbered. An appropriation for a capital expenditure shall continue in force until a purpose for which it was made has been accomplished or abandoned. Most of the lapses that we're going to look at on the following pages are either capital projects or professional contracts. Funding for these will be through reserves from the lapsed appropriations. These items were approved in the 2019-2020 budget. The next item will be the ordinance 21-01. Erica, do you have that PowerPoint? Okay, so the 2019-2020 lapse appropriations on the next page. We'll have the public hearing. This is to amend the budget, an ordinance to amend the budget. We'll be looking at the general fund, the water fund, the road impact, and the water impact funds. The next page will show those projects that lapsed during the 2019-2020 fiscal year, and that we're looking to amend the budget to roll those balances, those unpaid balances forward into the 2020-2021 budget. Those first items are going to be under the contract engineering account, a project with Freeze and Nichols, which was for miscellaneous town engineering projects. There's a lapsed balance of $4,321.54. Mcmanus and Johnson for the State Highway 352 water main conflict project, a lapsed balance of $13,900. Komatsu for the new fire station design, a lapsed balance of $78,394.30. In addition, there's under the road maintenance account, Freeze and Nichols. There is a remaining balance on roadway inspections, which is a contract we have with Freeze and Nichols on an as-needed basis for road inspections. There is a lapse balance of $24,509.23. And the road maintenance from 2019-2020, that budget roll forward is $480,388.73. These total $601,513.80. And at the top of that page, you can look at a summary of the general fund balance. It will show you where we were as of 9/30/2020. We had an ending unassigned fund balance of $6,612,445 and an assigned fund balance of $746,346. Rolling that in unassigned fund balance forward and making the budget adjustment of $601,514 will change your revenues will change your expenses to $9,909,059 and will give you an ending fund balance as of 9/30/2021 of an unassigned fund balance of $5,264,586 and an assigned fund balance of $746,346. That will give you 7 months or 194 days. On the next page, those are the water fund expenses that lapsed. There was a Mcmanus and Johnson project for the Harris Addition Engineering, a lapse balance of $9,000. For the road impact fund, for the Collins Road Phase 1, there was a lapse $1,617,520. And on the water impact, Freeze and Nichols, the impact fee study lapsed. There is a balance of $32,185.35. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Phyllis. Going to, this is a public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing. So if there's anyone in the audience or online that would like to come speak to council on these items, please raise your hand or come forward. Online.
No hands raised.
Thank you very much. I'm going to close the public hearing. Council, questions? Comments? Okay. Call for motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Eldridge, seconded by Councilmember Clark. Any other comments or discussion? All right, call for a vote. Please approve.
Yes.
All approved. There's none. So unanimously approved. Thank you. Now we will move on to our discussion action items. Start with item number 11 on the agenda is to hear and discuss a presentation on the status of the new fire station and horse barn project. Susan.
Yes, sir. I'm going to start this off and then hand it off to a couple other people. So if we could get the mic over there for Charlie when I hand it off, that'd be great. And then can I get my PowerPoint up, Erica? Go to the first page. Okay, so I'm just going to give a little bit of an intro. This is a presentation on just the status. There's no action on this tonight, but we wanted to know you all to know where we were at with this project. So if you can go the second slide. So I'm not gonna read through this project history, but I think it's important that every time we visit this project, we reflect back on all the steps that we've taken. You know, if somebody's just now tuning in, it may, seem like, well, how did we get to this point? Well, there's a whole lot of steps that we've gone through. It really started formally back in February of 2019, so almost 2 years ago. And at that time, the council had appointed a CIP Citizens Committee, and one of the projects that was on the list was a new fire station. And at that time, that committee ranked that as their #1 project that they wanted us to move forward with. And specifically, the plan was to move forward in the year 2020. So from that, the town adopted the CIP plan that summer. And then eventually we issued an RFQ for a design firm, which is Komatsu, who we've continued to work with. We got 8 different firms who responded to our RFQ, and we interviewed the top 4 firms, and we toured stations all over the Metroplex to make that decision. Then on March 23rd of this last year and May 11th, the council voted unanimously to issue COs, certificates of obligation, for the cost of construction and design of the fire station project. Next slide, please. From there, another couple of meetings took place to try to determine the location. We, as part of our contract with Komatsu, they were hired to assess the locations. We had our first meeting in May, where they narrowed the selection down. Council voted to narrow the selection down to Jobson Park and Glazier. We then came back on July 13th, and we heard from more information on those 2 sites. And at that point, council wanted to go back and look at Town Hall and to a little bit more degree. And you all also asked us to hire an expert in response time data to help really assess the best location. From there, on August 24th, council heard the presentations from the experts as well as the fire department and the architects. And with all of that information kind of funneled down, the council voted to select the Glazier Site as the home of the new fire station. On October 12th, the council voted to combine both the fire station and the horse barn project together to get economies of scale, to ensure that the engineering was done in such a way that we had the best chance of not having any conflicts between 2 different projects, and also to really work at getting the sewer line extended over to Tripp, because we have a lot of residents over there who are not on sewer, they're still on septic. So there were several reasons. Also at that meeting, we made the decision as a council to go with a construction manager at risk project, and we'll process, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I just wanted to give you a brief history of where we've been and where we've come with this project. Next slide, please. So this is the Glazier Site, and up in the upper right-hand corner, you see the topographic map, and then you see a very early on placement of the 2 facilities. So you can see how they kind of interact and where they are on the site. So we're using the far left-hand part of the parcel. You can see that this site allows us to have an entrance off of Jobson and then the exit for response off of Tripp. So it's easy east, west, and north. There's not floodplain impacts on the adjacent properties with this site. There will be fill dirt needed, and basically the 2 parcels, the 2 projects would be designed to complement each other. I included the photo in the upper left-hand side because it was the concept drawing, and it actually came from the Glazier Horse Committee when they were looking at design, kind of a look for the barn. So we've shared this with the fire station architect because we really want this whole project to be cohesive and complement each other. So if you can go to the next slide. So our next steps in this process are to issue a construction manager at risk RFP. That document is complete. It was reviewed by legal. I received it back actually today. And it will be posted on January 14th to our website. And then we will then enter into the whole schedule of that process. We'll then select the construction manager at risk, and concurrently, they will work with the construction manager at risk to finalize the design. If you remember, the benefits of the construction manager at risk is this is actually the general contractor who will be building these facilities. And so having them in early on the design process allows them to help us design in a way that will maximize our investment. And we also kind of have the advantage of getting some good idea of cost right out of the gate, so we know what our budget is and then design to that budget. Next slide, please. This just summarizes that, and this is a procurement process allowed by the local government code. You can see that, and we anticipate award of the contract for the construction manager at risk February 22nd, 2021. So a pretty aggressive timeline with receiving those RFPs and interviewing and making a selection. Next slide, please. So right now, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Charlie. Charlie, you've met Charlie before, but Charlie is a representative with Komatsu. We work with him probably on a daily basis. And what I'd like for Charlie to do is to walk through the preliminary designs and kind of explain why we have 3 different designs and kind of the advantages of them and what we're looking at in terms of budget. So I'm going to turn it over to Charlie. Thank you so much.
Evening, Council. How's everybody doing today? Thank you, Susan. So we have been very busy. I know we've been kind of not in front of you in the last several months, but like Susan said, we have been working daily on trying to get to this point, and we're excited that the CM at Risk RFP is going out to get them on board as part of our cost effort to get this station in. The first slide, we can go ahead and throw these up. I know hopefully you've had a chance to look at these, but in working with the department, firefighters, we initially had our program, which we're hitting on this first one here, the full roughly 12,500 square feet. We have 8 dorms, 1 officer sleeping room, and 3 full bays. And this, along with the admin area there to support the administrative side of the fire department. And so this concept works. We have a little bit, as we get back to the budget, we'll see that we're currently under the budget that we are carrying with as Komatsu. We're a little over budget, which is why we came up with some different options. And it's important to note that the CM process, as Susan noted, is really critical to get some early cost estimating to really see. We don't want to start cutting square footage or adding square footage at this point till we really know what the market's going to bear, so we can maximize what Sunnyvale can afford to build or would like to build for the next 30 years. You're not hindered on a quick decision based off a budget. So is there any questions on this floor plan? We can come back and forth. I just was going to kind of compare the 3 first and then, yes, sir.
Sorry. My question is, to my knowledge, we have 4 full-time firemen and we have 8 dorms and a captain's room.
Correct. So if the chief would like to address that, and I'll just kind of give you our take on that, or why the program met that, is that once another piece of apparatus is brought or an ambulance service is brought to that station, we automatically add crew. And we also have shift differential, which we always plan for. Somebody's coming in, they're still asleep, new crew, volunteers may want to stay over. There's 2 things in a fire station that you never have enough of: dorm rooms and storage. It's sort of like building a house. So that's the answer from an architectural program side. Chief, did you have any comment on the?
Evening, Council. To answer your question, the fire stations are built. We want to be able to have a fire station where we can grow into it without looking down the road and having to build another multi-million-dollar fire station. We're trying to have enough room where we can allow the growth in there. You know, a perfect world, we would like to have more firemen on the fire truck now. We're short on that as well. So, you know, as Charlie said, there's a lot of in and out going on, whereas if we bring people in for whatever, and plus you have to also remember, we're trying to work an EOC room out of this. So when you do that and we get into a long incident, there's going to be people that are probably going to need to stay there as well. So we want to be able to accommodate, you know, a bed and the showers and all that stuff that we'll need for overnight. So again, the most important thing is being able to absorb the growth without saying, okay, it's time to build another fire station.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this floor plan before we move to the next one? And like I said, I think you can go ahead and bring the other slide up. It's important to remember right now at this stage, what we have done is we have verified the requirements of the department. When we get the contractor on board and actually start putting some pricing with this and constructability options, then we'll really have a third tool to bring in to kind of really start fleshing this out to where we can maximize that value. Basically, this plan, we gave up 2 of the sleeping rooms to bring that down to 6 and 1, and took a little bit of square footage out of admin. And once again, these are square footage changes that are purely based off $1 per square foot cost. But until we get them on board, we're really going to have to kind of understand that better.
And on this floor plan, just from my comments, so we originally assumed $400 a square foot, and that was based upon comps that we were getting in the region, although we have heard some lower comps recently. So that's the purpose of this floor plan, is mathematically this one gets us to the budget if that really is the cost per square foot. We don't know until we get to that point. But Jonathan, you can see we lose really 2.5, really maybe 3 rooms here on this. So now we're getting down to a room count where if the chief stays over, which he often does if there's a storm coming, if we have crews overlapping each other, because that's really common if there's a storm, or a lot of other issues, if we have interns who come, people who come and work for us for training purposes. Now we're getting to where it really is pretty much getting closer to what we need now versus building for the future. And originally we talked about, I said, design something we can easily add on to. It's just a question of, does it make more sense to just go ahead and build it while we're there? So I think that's a journey that we'll take over the next few months with the construction manager at risk. And Charlie, can I ask you to just comment on the shelter?
Sure.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so what Susan's talking about there is there's a safe room requirement for the Emergency Operations Center. It's actually a requirement of the new building code for any public safety building. And working with your building official, we have, if you'll notice the workout room that's over there on the east side of the bay, the way the building's oriented, you'll notice kind of a double thickness on the wall there. That's the CMU wall. And we're taking advantage of that square footage because that wall is CMU construction anyway for the structure of the trusses to clear the bays, since we don't have columns within the bays. So it allows us to quickly, or not quickly, but in an inexpensive way, form the shelter requirements, which is basically no windows, structure, concrete cap type room, instead of bringing that into the center of the station on the admin side. So that's the safe room that we're proposing at this point. And all 3 schemes right now show that. One of the requirements for a safe room is a restroom. The program showed a restroom in the workout room anyway, so it kind of lent itself well for that application. This is not a EOC activation type place where it would take a direct hit. This is a life safety safe room where the inhabitants of the building would go there during an event and then come out, hopefully everyone alive, not necessarily functioning in the building. There's other plans for that continuance of operation. So, and the third bay, or the third option, getting back, you can move one forward, please. So getting back to that bunk room, we wanted to look at an option that got us down closer to 12,000 square feet, as Susan said, to meet that $200 or $400 a square foot, to meet our budget, current budget on paper. And the department felt strongly that they would rather have the sleeping rooms for all the aforementioned things that we just talked about versus the bay space. So we took a shot at moving some of that support equipment on the east side and making this a 2.5 bay concept. Once again, we're probably not seeing square footage cost per square footage equal to equal on this, because we're taking an open area into a structural, wall area. But these are all options that we wanted to have ready, so when the CMRS gets on board, we have some good information to start those discussions. So I will like to thank both Susan and the chief and the department. We went through a lot of input on these 3 options and pushing and shoving, trying to get everything in there to work. There's a lot of, and I won't take the time to go through, but if you have any questions, But there's been a lot of discussion about, for example, the bedroom size, day rooms, kitchens, just really things of what actually needs to work day to day, not necessarily what are we seeing. And we did bring that expertise and what we're seeing on other comparable stations around the Metroplex and the state, but really specific to Sunnyvale and what it takes to operate, not only now, but for the next 20 or 30 years. And that's kind of the mindset that we've had in this process. So.
Things that I learned from Charlie and the chief and through this process is all the design elements that have to do with the safety of the firefighters. And, I was like, do we really need a separate room for the washer and dryer and the extractor and the bunker gear and all that? And there's so much, and Charlie and the chief can talk about it much better than I can, but it has to do with the cancer risk and the safety of the firefighters that, when they come back to a fire, they need to rinse off immediately. They need to get the carcinogenics, is that the right word, off of their skin immediately. They need to have a place away from their sleeping rooms where they clean the equipment. And we actually have already gotten our extractor equipment in. So a lot of the design does have to do with the safety and health of the firefighters.
Also add dovetail to what Susan's saying. We were fortunate doing a lot of this CARES Act stuff. So there was a lot of stuff that we were able to purchase for the good of what she was saying and the patients and decontaminating our people. So we've been fortunate. We've got a lot of that product that we can also, as she mentioned, the washer and dryer, for instance, going in there. We've done, some other things for the EOC because of preparing for the next incident. So we've been doing a lot of work, as everybody's been stated, since we started this project. So kind of want to let y'all know too, we're trying to grab everything we can to at least take some of that construction cost off, and we've got some good things out of that.
Chief, can you tell us what is an extractor?
It's a washer.
Thank you. Extracting the carcinogens out of the clothing of the firefighter, or
it's a big washer, commercial washer, because of the bunker gear's weight. And
bunker gear. Okay.
We have an opportunity to wash more than one set of gear in this extractor, and it tumbles. It doesn't do this because it's a material thing.
Very industrial. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So I have a tag-along question on that. If we're going to wash the clothes separate from the bunkers, assuming the fireman is contaminated, where's he taking a shower back in the dorm rooms?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go on with this contamination, and even now with the COVID stuff, they basically can down dress in the bay area, change clothes, and then walk into the station, and then do their showers and things like that. So there's a lot of things going on out there in the service for protection. Some towns are buying the shoes to wear, put on their overshoes.
It seems I thought it'd be a shower right off the bay somewhere. I guess that's
that's kind of where that decon. There's a room. It's called decon up there. That's where it really gets clean up in that room. As Susan stated, a lot of this stuff is also by what regulations that we're supposed to have. We had a Texas commission on fire this last week on inspections, where they look and make sure we have the policies in place. We have the facilities, bunker gear rooms, and things like that. So a lot of stuff is not so much a call wish list on our part. It's what we're having to do by mandatory building.
So the decon is a washroom?
Yes, sir. It's going to have a shower. It'll have a shower head in that room, and it's basically just walking into a room with shower. And then, of course, that washes the clothes, but we decon on scene as well. So
I don't want to get into how y'all do all that stuff. I just had the question.
You'll have a tour.
While we're taking the restroom,
we'll have a
shower
tour
back in there.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We go up to the horse barn and wash off where the horse.
Yeah. Charlie, quick question for
I
you.
did not say that.
I know sometimes when we're trying to save cost per square foot, have we done any analysis of doing shelf space, like future expand space or anything like that? Because I unfortunately have done a few of these other commercial projects, and it seems like we always build them too small, number one. And have we looked at the cost differential, say instead of not having something under roof, go ahead and putting it under roof, future expansion kind of stuff?
Right, and that's a great point, and that's why on this third option where we have that cut out there on the bay side, we don't square the bay off. When we're pouring concrete or putting a roof truss up, we're not going to see $400 square foot savings since we've taken the square edge off of that building because we have to have the same amount of structure over it. Those types of things, we have to have the contractor on board. So yes, we are going to look at some different options. One of the things that we talked about earlier was possibly doing an expansion bay, setting everything up for that, all the plumbing, electrical structure, so that we just bring that in as a finish out type thing. But right now we are working toward a specific budget and trying to get a program that would work if we, if we meet that budget and don't want to go over that budget. So to answer your question, we will be looking at all that with the CM at risk, but currently we have not drawn that because we're adhering to a $400 square foot, 4.8 million currently. But yes, will be part of the discussion.
Even if you had to give something up right now and put it under roof for later, goodness, future generations will thank us. Thank you,
Sure.
Charlie.
Anything else on the floor plans? Okay. I'd like everyone to look at the draft statement on this, draft rendering. We literally worked on this over the holidays, over the weekend. And the reason being is that we really tried, and I hope you can see how it reflects the equestrian or horse facility, which we are also still trying to refine. And that, we're looking at some options on that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But just keeping in context, the colors on this particular rendering are not exactly the way I was hoping to present them. But it takes about 20 hours every time we run through a rendering, and we just ran out of time today. I was even tweaking this morning, but just the massing concept, trying to keep the cupolas, the 3 dormers. We may do something a little different on the low side there with another cupola or 2. But I guess the point I wanted to portray tonight is we are listening to you, and we will make these 2. I don't want to say that they will necessarily look the same, but they definitely will complement each other is kind of our goal. So in materials and in the massing concept. Any questions on that? Okay. Next slide is the budget we talked about, and you'll see in the green is the 12,470, 12,480 concept, and then there's 12,000 in the orangish red there on the right. Any questions on like I said, until we really get them on board, these are purely numbers based off of projects that have been within the last 12 months that we're updating. So, any questions on that? Okay, next slide. Horse barn design. We were not involved early on with the committee, although we have gleaned a lot of information. We did retain Dorian Arledge, who was one of the consultants that your previous design team was working with, and she has been a good help to us as we move forward down the road on this. The CM at risk is going to, in the RFP that's released, will be responsible for both these projects under one contract. Even though we know there's some different funding sources for these, we will work that out on the funding. But the real benefit to that is to try to make sure we can maximize all the site work, drainage, grading, like Susan said, the sewer line extension to the south. And so that's part of their process. We have looked and we've talked to a couple folks that do prefab kits. Obviously, we would have to be responsible, I say we, the town, on the contractor side, would provide the foundations, the drives, and those types of things, and possibly even bring them in as a subcontractor. That's one of the things we have to have the CM at risk input on. What is the most economic system for the town of Sunnyvale? So we're working forward on that too. Any questions on that? Okay, next slide. And this is just one of the concepts. In a cost-saving effort, we looked at the blue area there would be concrete, which is mandated for your public safety vehicles to have surface to turn. The T turn there has been approved by the fire department to get out. And then the rest of that option, we're looking at some kind of hardscape gravel, maybe porous concrete, just some different options. Not only to save money, but really just to kind of soften the whole area of the barn type thing, not make it look like it's got a sea of concrete out in front of it. So just some of the options we wanted to show you there that we are investigating. Next slide. I believe you all have seen this previously. This was taken directly from what the committee had recommended concept-wise. And hopefully you can see what we're trying to play off that with the fire station design. And the next is the floor plan, which once again, although we have made some minor changes here to the feed stalls and a washdown area that is not shown here, we're still trying to determine the best place to put that on the site, but it would basically be a covered wash area that's not necessarily part of the building, so walled out for washing down the animals. So that's the only real change at this point. And we are really ready to springboard to get all this underway once we start, getting them on board and really moving forward. So, and then the next slide is just the budget on the barn, and a similar concept to what we had on the fire station.
And I do want to pause here because, and I don't want poor Charlie to have to deal with this, but I really want to make sure that we note that right now the preliminary budget is well above what's budgeted for this. So 4B budgeted $500,000 this year. Obviously, it's not going to pan out during this fiscal year, but that's all that's budgeted. So the preliminary costs are well above that. Now, before we panic, we want to get the construction manager at risk on board and really talk about, the prefab option, what other savings we could get, what the impact of doing the site work together is going to be. But I felt like it was really important to show you kind of, I don't want to say like worst case scenario, but we might be at a deficit and we may have to figure that out. So I don't think we're to that point, but I do want to kind of raise the flag that although we feel pretty confident on the fire department, I'm not as confident on the budget on this. The horse barn alone, just the facility is $400,000 in the preliminary estimate, plus everything else that goes along with it. And, this is a tricky one, and we don't need to discuss it or make a decision now. I just want to make sure you're aware that this is where our starting point is, and then we can keep working on it. So,
and one thing that I'll add to that is, what Susan's referring to is the kits that we looked at were in the $350,000 to $400,000 range. I think the one point that I would like to make here is that while it does appear that we over budget, and I know we're over budget at $500,000 is the hard number tonight, but the key here is that we will be bringing you some options and give you enough information to make a decision. We are not just blindly going to go off and design an $850,000, $900,000 setup here. But I can tell you there is a lot of dirt to move out there. We've got the same driveway, flat work, drainage, sewer connection, everything else that we have for a regular, even the fire station or the building is still tied into this facility. So when you add that to a $300,000 or $400,000 kit, you can see where the numbers start to go. So that's just what we're looking at. But like I said, we're not marching off blindly into making this Churchill Downs. We're just trying to get as much information as we can. And we literally have only been on this part of the project for probably 6 weeks now, sir. So we're getting our feet on the ground, but we will bring you some better information soon.
Did you say sewer connection?
Yes, we will have to have a sewer connection for this building because we have a restroom for it in the
Oh,
building.
I was about to say the horses are fine.
Oh yeah, the horses are fine. But yeah, we have to have a restroom in the building for code purposes. Anything else? Okay, we're selling naming rights, by the way, if anybody would like to pitch. Okay, I'll let you take this.
And then just next steps wise, the architect contract is complete, and It is with the lawyer for review right now, and we expect to have that back on the 19th, so it should be on your January 25th agenda. And if you recall, when we did the original RFQ to hire the architects, we put in that RFQ that we had the option to continue with the same company, and that's what we're exercising here. Next slide.
Okay, you going to cover this bit?
Just high level.
Yeah, just so big picture here, we will have our construction documents done early summer, get the final bidding from the CM at risk, and start construction roughly 12 to 13 months on the fire station, finishing up September or so of next year, and which is a pretty standard schedule. And obviously the horse barn facility will fall in here somewhere. Once we get all the site work done, it'll come along pretty quickly, but I do not have a schedule for that yet. But I would probably say that it will be no later than this time next year we would have that facility up and running, possibly by the end of the year. So. Okay, any other questions for me? All right, well, thank you all for your time and have a good evening.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
All right. Staff, anything else on that? I'm going to open the floor to public comments. If there's anybody in the audience or online that would like to public comment on this, now's your time. I'd ask that if you are online, you raise your hand and you would state your name and address for the record, please. Nobody in the audience. Do we have anybody on the line that would like to speak?
No hands raised.
No hands raised. Okay, very good. Council, comments? Freeman?
I think we're going to have further discussions on the horse farm, but other than that, glad to see that everything's moving along.
Freeman? Anyone else? I tend to agree with Mr. Freeman. I think we're going to have to really look at the costs. I know we talked about this, and I'm all for having a structure, but I think we really have to consider totality of costs we're going to have for something for this type of facility. Seems like, Susan, knowing that 500,000 is what's dedicated to it, we should, is there a work backwards plan, what that would look like?
Yeah, so right now you see the 888, and we said the barn itself is 400-ish. So just the flat work and the design and all of that, that is a work backwards. But what we've talked about an open air barn with the committee. We've talked about other options. So, again, I just wanted to get this out into the universe, make sure you were aware of the challenges that we're facing and why we might come back to you with other options at this point. Now that I've seen this number, we got to work backwards.
I know. Now we've seen the Mercedes and I have to go back and grab my Ford. So
No,
I always want the Mercedes, right?
If you think about it, from the first proposal we got, that is much better. It's much, much closer to what we're looking at.
Okay, I don't think we need a motion on that. That was just discussion items. So we'll move on to item number 12. Discuss and consider and act upon resolution 21.01, resolution of Town Council of Sunnyvale approving entering into a master capital improvement program with Dallas County. Susan? Lyle. Hey, Lyle, how are you?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, Council. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, great. Just want to check. Yes, this item is for the update of the MCIP agreement with Dallas County. The town has had an MCIP in place with the county since 2001. Basically, it governs how we do business with the county on large major capital improvement projects, for example, Collins Road Phase 1. This agreement expires periodically and it has to be renewed. The last time it was renewed prior to this was in December of 2016. And so here we are 5 years later, time to renew it. It's substantially the same agreement. There are a number of minor revisions to it, but the way the agreement worded now is consistent with the way we've been doing business with the county. All that having been said, I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Council, any questions for Lyle? Okay. No questions. Okay, thank you, Lyle.
All right, thank you.
Open this up for public comments. For anybody in the public or online that would like to speak to this item, please raise your hand or come forward to do so. No one in the audience. Anyone online, please?
No hands raised.
No hands raised. Thank you. Council, questions, comments? Okay. Can I have a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt item 12 as presented.
Second. Here we have a motion by Mr. Allen, seconded by Mr. Freeman. All in favor? All right, thank you. Motion passes unanimous. Move on to item 13. Discuss, consider, and act upon creation of a temporary multi-generational community recreation center committee. All right, who's got this, Bert? Oh, Susan.
So, Mayor and Council, if you recall, during the Citizens CIP Committee, this project was ranked highly. And when we did the CIP plan, we felt like it was prudent to really delve into what is it that the community wants. And so, I don't think during that initial process, we were able to flesh that out. There's a lot of different ideas and thoughts. So the recommendation was to form a citizens committee to take a closer look at this and then come back with recommendations. So they would look at everything from what the programming is, what this project might include, what the costs might be, where it might go, and then come back to this body with a recommendation. So Burton and JD worked together to do our charter, which is included in your packet. This is just kind of giving the scope to the committee. And then the way we would work this is once you've voted to accept the charter, then we would kind of leave it up to you all to send me nominees that you're interested in being on this committee. There's a few listed on the charter just because Councilmember Clark was really excited about this and sent me some names early on and I had kept them. But if you would send us any nominees that you have, and then we will bring back a list to you all to vote on to actually appoint to this committee. So today we're just establishing the charter and opening it up for nominations that you can email to me.
Thank you, Susan. I'll open this up to the floor for public comment. If there's anyone in the audience or online who'd like to speak to this, please do so now. If no one in the audience, are there any hands raised?
No hands raised.
No hands raised. Council, questions, comments?
Mayor, Pro-Tem, I have one question. It's probably for Susan. Looking at, I have no idea what page that is. But anyway, in the additional committee representatives, are those numbers set in stone by the committee or the council? Is 2 library, 2 Sarissa? Was that set or is that just?
No, sir. It's
Okay,
just a
thank you.
suggestion.
Do you have any other suggestions, Mr. Allen?
No, I don't. I was just, if we're going to make recommendations, we'll see if they fit into those categories.
Okay. All right. Do we need to solicit a council member, Mr. Clark, to be a member of this? Mr. Clark?
That'd probably be wonderful.
I think we should.
Good. I nominate Mr. Clark unless Mr. Egan would like to serve on that committee.
Mr. Egan? He's looking for some music.
Mark.
There we go. Mr. Clark can take that role.
I was just checking to make sure you're still awake, Mr. Egan.
Thank you.
Okay, good. You got Mr. Clark. All right, council, any other comments, questions on that? Do we need a motion? Do we need to approve this by vote?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If I can have a motion, please.
Motion to approve item 13 as presented.
Second?
Okay, motion by Mr. Freeman, second by Mr. Clark. All in favor? Motion passes unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to the last item on the agenda, item 15, mayor and council request for future staff updates. Oh, sorry. What did I miss? Oh, I'm sorry. I did forget 14. I jumped right ahead. Okay, we'll go on to item 14, discuss and consider and act upon resolution 21.02, resolution of the town council of the town of Sunnyvale approving a contract for final review by the town manager and town attorney with Mcmanus Johnson Consulting Engineers. Is that Lyle or Susan?
Lyle, sir.
Lyle.
Yes, yes. Yes, thank you, sir. This design contract, as you said, is for phase 2 of the Harris addition. sewer/alley rehabilitation project. As y'all will recall, we had Mcmanus and Johnson design phase 1 of that same project for us, which has currently been, it's been bid, it's been awarded to a contractor. We're preparing to start construction toward the end of this month. So now that phase 1 is well on the way, we wanted to start the design for phase 2 so that we can be ready to start construction on it around the time phase 1 is wrapping up. Because Mcmanus and Johnson was the consultant for phase 1, and because these two projects, of course, are directly abutting each other, there's going to be a lot of interfacing between the two phases. And so in order to avoid conflicts and potential difficulties where they come together, kind of like what we're doing on the fire station and the Glazier tract, the intent was always that Mcmanus and Johnson was also designed phase 2. They've already done the survey work for phase 2. They've done the evaluation of the existing system for phase 2. So a lot of the groundwork has actually already been done as part of the phase 1 contract. The project would take, we expect, about the same length of time to design. It is a slightly larger project just because there's more alleys and more sewer in phase 2 than there was in phase 1. But they would begin design right away, and I would expect roughly a 12-month design period, similar to what's been going on with phase 1. So again, with all that having been said, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Well, Mr. Allen?
Well, I'll have a question. I'm sure it's covered. I'm just curious. Have the residents been notified of potential impact to their alleys being redesigned and torn up? I know you're 10 months ahead, but is that somewhere in the process?
Well, we have already had public meetings for the entire subdivision sometime back during the early phases of the design process. And all of this has been discussed. It is on the town's website. And as we move forward, as we get further into the design process, we're going to be keeping the public apprised on the progress of the design so that everybody is well informed, well in advance of any actual work being done.
Will that close down the alleys for a period of time when you actually start digging?
Yes, they will have to be closed for a period of time. The way we're going to do it is kind of like what we're doing on phase 1. We're going to try to minimize the amount of excavation in any one alley at any one time in order to minimize the disruption of the residents. Unfortunately, it's unavoidably going to have some inconvenience, both for access and for trash pickups and so on and so forth. But the only thing we can do is we will keep everybody posted well in advance. And when we actually get a detailed construction schedule, we'll be working with the individual residents to let them know exactly when disruptions would start and finish.
Thanks, Lyle. I didn't mean to get that deep in. I apologize, but I knew you were planned. Thank you.
Sure.
We did the public meeting here with the residents. We got a list of people who would be impacted. And I do think it's really, on this venue to mention, if you are in that neighborhood and you want to be on our distribution list, contact Lyle, Erica, or I. So, because we are reaching out with updates like on phase 1 of, hey, this is where we're at. Do you have questions? So if we don't have your email address, please reach out and give us your email address. We always, when we send something out to that group, we always say, give this to your neighbor if they don't have that. And so that's a really good point.
Can we get a copy? When I say we, I guess maybe myself, I don't want to obligate anybody else, but if I see where phase 1 and 2 is, maybe there's people on there that I know that I can reach out to as
Absolutely.
well. Because you know how people don't really listen.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. But it is the reason we did phase 1 and phase 2 is so that we didn't have the whole neighborhood under construction at once. That's why we staggered this project. So you're welcome, sir.
Okay. Look us up for public comment. If there's anyone in the audience or online that would like to comment on this item on the agenda, please come forward or raise your hand. No one is coming forward. Are there any hands raised?
There are not.
No hands raised. Thank you. Council, your comments, questions? Not, I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve item number 14 as approved or as
Second.
presented.
I'll second.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Freeman, second by Mr. Clark. All in favor? Motion passes unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Eden. Okay, now the final item. Try to jump ahead there. Final item on the agenda. Item 15, Mayor and Council request for future staff updates and or agenda items. Anyone have anything? Okay, no such items. I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Motion made by Mr. Eldridge. He was it. And second by Mr. Allen. All in favor? All right. Motion to adjourn at 8:02 p.m. We are adjourned.